Jessica, my only daughter, was in her last month of pregnancy, yet her husband Thomas acted annoyed that she wasn't cleaning. When I opened the front door, I saw Jessica and Thomas standing there. Thomas frowned and started complaining about dust under the table and a dirty bathroom floor. He seemed to blame me, as if my daughter's difficulty with chores meant I had failed as a parent. It's hard for her to bend down with that belly. I thought, if he's so concerned, why doesn't he clean it himself? Before I could say anything, Thomas turned toward the door, saying, I can deal with someone who can even keep the house clean. I'm leaving her. I'm Rebecca, 54 years old, working at a large corporation. After losing my husband, I raised Jessica on my own. Though it was challenging, her smile always made the effort worthwhile. Jessica grew up to be kind and thoughtful, with many friends, but she struggled in romantic relationships and didn't date much. Even in college, I started worrying she'd be alone after I was gone. Then, she shyly told me she was dating a man she met through a friend. Their relationship blossomed, and after 2 years, they got engaged. I was so relieved. It's hard to let your only child move out, but knowing she had someone eased my heart. Jessica and Thomas lived about an hour away. He was 4 years older than her and very ambitious, often working late or going out for drinks, leaving all the chores to Jessica. I thought they should share responsibilities, but I didn't interface. 6 months after their wedding, Jessica excitedly told me she was pregnant. She had always wanted a sibling, so knowing she'd have a child of her own brought her so much joy. Seeing her gently rub her belly, even before she was showing, filled me with happiness. I told her, if you ever need anything, just call. Since Jessica continued working during her pregnancy, I checked in on her regularly. Around her second trimester, I got assigned a big project that involved frequent travel. Jessica was thrilled for me and encouraged me to focus on work, assuring me she'd be fine. I asked Thomas a few times to take care of her while I was busy. Now that the project was ending and Jessica was almost due, I wanted to discuss plans for when the baby arrived. I called her, but to my surprise, Thomas answered the phone instead. Hey, Rebecca, good timing. Jessica's pretty useless and in the way, so I'm dropping her off at your place. Thomas said on the phone. Before I could respond, he hung up. An hour later, the doorbell rang, and there was Jessica, looking completely worn out. Her hair, thin, and nails looked dry and neglected, with dark circles under her eyes and cracked, bleeding fingers. She barely looked like herself. I invited them in and had them sit on the couch. Jessica was silent, so I demanded an explanation from Thomas. Why is Jessica like this? Thomas, without a hint of shame, seemed surprised. Are you blaming me? She's the one who slowed down because of her big belly. Housework is a woman's job. She even lied about feeling sick to avoid chores. I was stunned. You made a pregnant Jessica do everything. Morning sickness isn't a disease, he scoffed. She even asked me to help, but I work all day. She's just in the way now, so please take care of her until the baby's born. At that moment, I realized Thomas had no understanding of pregnancy or fatherhood. I couldn't leave Jessica in his care. Fine, I'll take her in. I don't trust you to care for her, I replied. Thomas sneered. If she's such a mess, it's because you raised her poorly. With no father around, she doesn't know how to treat a husband. I'm the one suffering here. Once the baby is born, come pick it up and fix your daughter's upbringing by then. With that, he left Jessica with me and walked away. I regretted ever letting her marry him. Jessica sat there, staring at the floor, looking lost. I wanted to comfort her, so I went to the kitchen, warmed some milk with a bit of sugar in her favorite cup, and handed it to her. Careful, it's hot, I said gently. As she sipped the milk, Jessica started sobbing. I sat her beside her, rubbing her back as she opened up about her life with Thomas. He continued going to work parties, even after she became pregnant, leaving her alone. He never helped her with anything, even when she was feeling sick. Worse, he'd bring colleagues home after drinking and make her cook and clean for them. She tried to make it work, even asking doctors to explain to Thomas about pregnancy, but he refused to listen. I hugged her, saying, from now on, it's okay to put yourself first, Jessica. If you're struggling, ask for help. I'm sorry I didn't notice sooner." She hugged me back and cried, finally letting her emotions out. In the days after Jessica came to stay, her mental state grew more unstable as her due date approached. I'd come home to find the house spotless. Even though I told her to rest, she kept doing chores, trying to move heavy things or change light bulbs. At times, she tried to pack her bags, afraid of Thomas's reaction to her being away. I thought she might need counseling, so I visited our neighbor, Lisa, a former therapist. Lisa welcomed me into her home, listened to Jessica's story, and recommended a good clinic. Jessica agreed to start visiting the hospital. Both Lisa and her husband, Kevin, were concerned about her and promised to keep an eye on her. While I was at work, Lisa would stop by to check on Jessica. Thankfully, Jessica started to feel better and began smiling again. When her due date arrived, I took her to the hospital as her contractions began. I stayed with her, rubbing her back and encouraging her. Finally, she went into the delivery room, and I waited outside, anxious and hopeful. When I heard the baby's first cries, a nurse told me both Jessica and the baby were healthy, a huge relief. When I went in, Jessica was holding her sleeping baby. I felt anger towards Thomas but still told him his daughter was born healthy. He showed up soon after, but instead of being supportive, he said, "Yuck, babies look like monkeys, not cute at all. Jessica, you're not even wearing makeup. You look lazy. Try to put some effort into how you look." The nurses and doctors nearby were furious. They scolded Thomas, saying, "Are you even a husband? Your wife just went through childbirth and you can't say anything kind." But Thomas didn't care. He angrily replied, "My mom worked right after giving birth, so this is just laziness." Then he stormed out and didn't even show up to pick Jessica up on the day she was discharged. Since I was worried about her returning to him, I suggested she stay with me. Jessica wanted her child to have a father, so she agreed to try going back home. I called Thomas, hoping he'd pick her up, but he just said, "I'm busy with work. I don't want to lose sleep over a crying baby." Then he hung up. I took Jessica and the baby home with me for a while, buying all the baby essentials Thomas hadn't even thought of. Together, Jessica and I named the baby Sarah. Our neighbors, Lisa and her husband, helped us with childcare, and Sarah grew up in a loving environment. 3 months later, Thomas suddenly showed up at the door, yelling, "I'm here to pick you up. Hurry up, you're always so slow." By then, Jessica was emotionally stronger and fully realized how poorly he treated her. She stood firm and told him, "I'm not coming back. Thomas, I won't be controlled by you anymore. I'll mail you the divorce papers, sign them." Thomas angrily yelled back, but Jessica didn't back down. "Are you kidding me?" Thomas said. "These days, a man with a wife and kids is more likely to succeed at work. What's the point of being married if we get divorced? I'm never getting divorced." My daughter was furious, realizing he had married and had a child just to boost his career. Before I could respond, our neighbors, Lisa and her husband, Kevin, stepped outside after hearing Thomas's loud voice. When Thomas noticed Kevin, he frowned. Kevin was actually Thomas's supervisor. Surprised, Kevin said, "So, you're Jessica's husband. I can't believe someone like you, who ignored his own child for 3 months, works under me. I can't trust someone who lacks empathy, and I'll be informing the CEO about this. Consider your promotion cancelled." Thomas panicked and started begging, "Please, Kevin, reconsider." But Kevin cut him off, showing no patience for excuses. Defeated, Thomas sank to his knees. Kevin was known for being a family man both in the neighborhood and at work, and he couldn't stand how Thomas was using his family as a means for career gain. It turned out Thomas had been pretending to care about his family just to impress people at work. After that, Thomas went back to the office and tried to persuade his co-workers to put in a good word for him with Kevin, but no one wanted to help. So, he went directly to the CEO and pleaded, "Sir, I've worked hard, and my sales numbers are always high. Please, approve my promotion." The CEO replied, "Your numbers might look good, but I've heard from your supervisor about your behavior. You use pushy tactics to win contracts, which harms our company's reputation. That's not what we want here, and I no longer have expectations for you." Thomas left the CEO's office, looking defeated. The CEO, a man known for his integrity, based his decision on more than just performance numbers. After this, Thomas lost motivation, started making mistakes, and was eventually transferred to a low-level department with hardly any responsibilities. Once his transfer was finalized, Thomas kept coming to our house, begging Jessica for another chance and asking to see Sarah. Jessica and I ignored him, but when he got too persistent, Kevin warned him that he would report his behavior to the CEO, which could get him fired. That finally got Thomas to stop. After that, we didn't see Thomas anymore. It was clear his affection had been shallow all along. When Kevin found out that Jessica was struggling to get her divorce accepted, he referred her to an excellent attorney. Thanks to that, the divorce went through smoothly, and she was even able to claim compensation for emotional distress. Thomas was transferred to a quiet, rural area, where he seemed to be living a lonely life. Kevin mentioned that the last time Thomas came into the office, he looked completely different. His shirt and suit were wrinkled. He had a scruffy beard, and he'd lost a lot of weight. In the small town he'd moved to, there aren't many conveniences like dry cleaners or stores nearby. Without a car, getting around isn't easy, and if he doesn't use these services, he'll have to handle things on his own. Thomas never helped around the house, always saying that was women's work. Now, living alone, he probably regrets treating Jessica like a servant, as he struggles to take care of himself. It seems he feels like he's lost everything since the divorce and losing custody. He even started missing the child support payments he promised for Sarah. When Jessica calls to remind him, he complains about how hard his life is, sounding almost in tears. I advised Jessica to go through legal channels for child support, and once she did, the payments came through. So far, Thomas hasn't reached out to see Sarah. If she ever wants to contact him in the future, we'll make that happen. But Jessica and I agreed that we'll raise Sarah with all the love and care she needs, helping her grow up strong and happy even without a father in her life.